Welcome to my channel, Sunshine Shoulders. I'm Calvin. Thank you so much for stopping by today. The subject of my vlog today is foreigners are leaving the big city for small town living in the Philippines. But before I get started, let me welcome my new viewers and new subscribers. Thank you so much for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of my channel. It's truly been amazing. I'll never take that for granted. I started coming here in the Philippines in 2009. And I've noticed a trend. There's no way I can really prove this, but this is just my boots on the ground experience. I see a trend where a lot of foreigners, many foreigners, are moving out of these big cities and opting for a quieter, simpler life in these small cities and municipalities in the Philippines. I got the idea for this vlog because spent the weekend in Bacolod City. And it was such a contrast between Bacolod City and San Carlos City. They're 2 hours apart. They're both in the province of Negros Occidental. Bacolod being the major city here. And I just noticed a lot of things, good and bad. And that's what I want to talk about, the pros and the cons of living in these big cities and the pros and cons of living in the smaller cities. One of the cons that I noticed right away is the people are lukewarm in these big cities. You know, they're still hospitable, they're still nice, but they're not as warm and not as welcoming as in these smaller towns. And I guess it's because everybody's so busy. They see foreigners all the time, more foreigners rather. And even though the numbers still say that foreigners lean toward these big cities, I just see a trend. I see more and more of us opting out for these smaller places. I lived in two gigantic places. Zamboanga City is the biggest city land-wise in the Philippines. And I also lived in Cebu City, which is one of the more congested urban areas in the Philippines. So I have something to weigh it up against as I live in San Carlos City right now. And that's one of the cons, but there's so many pros to living in the big city. If you're new, if you've never been to the Philippines before, I would suggest to you that you move as close to one of these big cities as possible. If not, move to the big city because you can it's easier to become more adapted and more acclimated to the Philippines and to the culture and get your feet wet, so to speak. And one of the biggest pros to living in these big cities is the healthcare. Let's face it, the major hospitals are in these big cities. This is where the best doctors are, the best nurses, the best healthcare. And so it's an advantage. See, you're going to have a lot of advantages, but you're going to also have a lot of disadvantages. But healthcare being the biggest. And then the infrastructure is so much better in these bigger cities, these major cities. The public service, the public transportation, the internet service, it's so much better. The logistics of getting around is so much easier. The shopping is so much better in these big cities, because a lot of the times it's hard for me to find stuff in a small city like San Carlos City. I have to go all the way to Bacolod City. Even if I'm looking for something as simple as a nice picture for my house, my wall in the living room, or we're getting ready to get a new bed. There's no beds here really. If they are, they're very overpriced. We were just in Bacolod City. What a selection. And the prices were right. They fit our budget. So shopping, and then of course, the nightlife. Some of us still like our nightlife. We like to go out and drink and party. And of course, I consider nightlife, the restaurants too, included in that. You're going to be able to get a nice steak, a nice burger. A lot of the things that you're going to miss from home that you really can't get in a small place like St. Carlos City. So those are some of the pros, and this is the reason why a lot of foreigners, they like living in these places. And then there's more foreigners, there's more expats. So you can have a lot of more chances to make connections and have somebody to talk to. But there's a lot of disadvantages to these big cities. Number one, the crime. I mean, that alone would drive me to the small cities. The snatchers, the petty crimes. It's just so much greater in these bigger places. The the uh, the chance of you getting robbed or having your phone snatched or stolen or something like that goes up tremendously in these big cities when you compare that to the smaller cities. And when I'm talking about smaller cities, I'm talking about places like Ormond City, 230,000. You've got St. Carlos City, 130,000. Then you got a lot of these municipalities that surround these bigger cities. Darwin, Zamboanguita, Cebuland, Tanhai City, like this around Dumaguete. Then you have places like Cotabato, South Cotabato. You've got places like Glen that surround General Santos to the south. Cities like that, Pagadian, that's in Zamboanga del Sur. Then if you go up north, Depola, Dapitan, these are smaller cities. And I'm seeing more and more foreigners gravitate to these smaller cities. And like I said, I don't have any real numbers. This is just my boots on the ground experience, what I'm seeing. And when I talk to people, they always mention they just want a quieter life, a simpler life. But in those big cities, you got the crime, you got the congestion, guys. It's just so many people in these small areas. Manila being, I think right now, it's the second most congested city on the planet. You've got 12, 13 million in that NCR area in a city, Manila, that was originally designed to hold 800,000 people. So with the congestion comes the traffic. It's just unbearable in a lot of these places. Every city that I've visited, from Zamboanga City, which is not Manila, it's not Cebu at all, but man, because the land use or the misuse of the land there, it's just created a traffic debacle. They built this big, gigantic KCC mall right in the middle of the city proper. Now they've built another big SM mall right there in the city, not the surrounding areas. So it attracts the people like a magnet. So from somewhere like 9 o'clock in the morning when the mall's open to about 5:30 in the evening, it's nuts to butts there. You can barely move. And for somebody like me who's been to the Philippines a long time and know my way around, I'm like, I made a choice. I don't want that. I like the city. I like to stick and move. I'll go there for a few days and get out of there. But you got the congestion, the crime, the traffic, the pollution. This is where you see a lot of the trash and a lot of the third world poverty. Because there's third world poverty everywhere, guys. Let's face it. And I was eating breakfast today in Bacolod City. And we're in this nice hotel. We were put up in the hotel by Rock Harmon for his son's christening. And we're sitting there in this nice restaurant in the hotel. And I'm looking out the door to the city, the hustle bustle in the city. And I'm like, wow, I could have been anywhere. And that's one of the appealing things about the big cities in the Philippines. But when you put the disadvantages, I'll always live in a place like St. Carlos City now. Now let's look at the pros and cons of these smaller places. Let's look at the pros now while people are moving here. It's quieter. We want a more quiet, simple life. And that's what you're going to get here. The rate is much, much lower. In Metro Manila, the crime rating is 74.5. In San Carlos City, it was 25. They did a survey here, and they asked people in San Carlos City how worried they were of having their car or their house broken into. The score was 0. They wasn't worried about that. See, that's what I want now. I'm able to sleep with my door open if I want to. Now, I've only been here for 2.5 years. What was it like before I came here? I don't know. I'm just telling you right now what it's like. The crime rates are so much lower, and I would trade that for all of that shopping and all of the infrastructure and all of that. Now let's look at a con real quick. The healthcare, there's no major hospital here. There's no major hospital within 2 hours from here. So that could be a problem. But do they have a good enough hospital to get you stabilized? Yeah, until they can get you to a major hospital. Absolutely. They got San Carlos Doctors Hospital. They call it SanDoc. And they've got a city hospital here that's very, what's the word I want to use? Competent. Booby was born in the city hospital. But that's one of the cons of being in these smaller places. You don't have that major hospital. The infrastructure is not as great. So the public transportation is not there, even though we have this series bus liner that you can go there and get you to these Bacolod, to get you to Iloilo City, to get you to Cebu, to get you to Dumaguete. It's not like Cebu where you can go out on the corner and catch a nice new jeepney and go downtown. So you got the crime rate. It's quieter here. There's a lot more open spaces here. There's no congestion here in San Carlos City in these smaller areas. So I can get up early in the morning and breathe in fresh air, go over here to Center Mall, either walk or ride my bike or just sit there and exercise. There's a lot of open spaces here. Because I'm going to tell you, I've got anxiety, and being closed in like that and being stuck in that noon traffic and that rush hour traffic, man, it causes me problems. So the pollution is lower. The traffic is non-existent here. There's no taxis here in San Carlos City. And if I'm not mistaken, there's no taxis in Ormuz City. Now, that's a city of 230,000. And by the way, Ormuz City, which is in Leyte, has the lowest crime rate in all of the Philippines. Okay, so this is a lot of the reasons why people are moving to these smaller places. And it just seems like everybody knows everybody. It's easier to get things done here. My girlfriend, they call her the vice mayor here because she knows everybody. She can get things done. I don't care if it's checking the land title, make sure it's clean when we bought the land, to getting the internet cut on, the electricity cut on. She actually knows the people in charge of these departments and stuff. The police. She knows these people. And that's a big deal. When you're older like me, you're 58. But I wouldn't suggest you to come right over to the Philippines and move in a small city for obvious reasons. Especially if you have health problems. Because there's no VA hospital. A lot of my viewers and subscribers are ex-military. There's no VA hospital around here. The main one is up in Manila. It's on the grounds of the U.S. Embassy. It's an outpatient clinic. But when you weigh it up, see, I can weigh it up. I've lived in the big city, Zamboanga City, which is the biggest city in the Philippines. I've lived in Cebu City, one of the most congested places. And now I live in San Carlos City. And I tell you what, There's no comparison to me now. There's no way I would go back to those big cities. Yeah, I like to hit and miss. I like to go to Bacolod because I like those big malls. I like those restaurants. I just like seeing all the people going back and forth. It's like having grandkids. I love my grandkids, but hell, when it's time to go, I give them to their parents and I get out of there. That's how I feel about these big cities. And that's what I've noticed about a lot more foreigners. They're leaving these big cities behind. They've got enough knowledge about the Philippines and they know their way around well enough that they've got a plan. If I get sick, here's what I'm going to do. If I need this or if I need that, I know where to get it. It's in Bacolod, 2 hours away. But the people here are so much warmer in these smaller towns. It's so much welcoming. We all seem to know each other. The crime, the congestion, the traffic is almost non-existent, guys. And that's why I would suggest to you, once you come over here, or if you've already been here and you know enough about the Philippines, take a look at these smaller towns. You don't have to be stuck in those big cities because you're going to notice that. You didn't come all the way over here to have your wallet snatched or somebody snatch your phone or something like that or get stuck in traffic. That's why I tell a lot of guys, when you fly in the Philippines for the first time, fly into Cebu or Clark. Don't fly into Manila unless you absolutely have to, because you get stuck in that traffic, man. It's going to give you a sour taste in your mouth about the Philippines. It's going to give the Philippines a bad rap. It really doesn't deserve. But it's up to you, really. It's whatever you like. If you like the nightlife, if you like the shopping, if you like the infrastructure and all that, then stay close to these big cities. I'll move to the big cities. But if you want a quiet life, you don't have to worry about crime as much. There's no traffic. There's no pollution. There's no congestion. Then I would say move to the small city, like a lot of us have decided to do. So thank you so much for stopping by. Just a video to kind of give you the pros and the cons of the big city and the small cities and towns here in the Philippines. Because at some point, you're going to have to make a choice. In the beginning, there's really no choice. I would say move to the big city. But once you get tired of all that traffic and all the crime and all the congestion, all the pollution, you've got some choices, man, and some very good choices. So if you're in America, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm going to go ahead and upload this video. So you're getting up. You're ready to go to work, to the gym, get a cup of coffee, a newspaper. If you see somebody less fortunate and they're out in the street or wherever you see them, buy them something to eat, buy them something to drink, give them a few dollars. If you're in the Philippines, I guess it's almost 6 o'clock because I'm looking at my window. It's pitch black out there. I hope you were able to help somebody today. There's no excuse not to help people over here. There's not a day goes by over here that I won't help anybody. Because if I don't know anything else, I know this one thing for sure. When we help other people, we help ourselves. Take care, stay safe, stay COVID free. I'll see you next time.